Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brice Lewis, and today we have another great show for you, talking all things basketball. And we're going to get right into it because you know what we do here. And the first thing we want to talk about is the New York Knicks. They hired David Blatt as a consultant. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the Knicks franchise over the last couple of years, the Knicks have not been the best. They've honestly been mediocre or below mediocre for the most part, and fans have been very much frustrated with the direction of the Knicks, especially with this year being another breaking point, as David Fizdale was fired earlier this year after being called out by the GM earlier in the year at the beginning of the season after a not so good start. And today they hired David Blatt, and I feel like that was an interesting decision. I feel like it's a decision that's curious to me because David Blatt hasn't really been in the league since he was in Cleveland, where he took the Cleveland Cavaliers to one finals appearance before getting fired the next year and getting replaced by Ty Lue. So for me, I'm intrigued by this because I think David Blatt knows basketball. I just feel like the situation he was in Cleveland wasn't the most ideal situation for him, but I do feel like he's in a better situation now. And I think one thing that's interesting to me is I wonder what this means, how he's going to advise them, how he's going to consult. Is he someone who's going to maybe advise them in looking for that next head coach or advise them in roster personnel? Because that's where the Knicks, a lot of people feel like, are lacking in the front office and in talent. Now, the Knicks have some young guys. They have Mitchell Robinson, Alfonso Thier, RJ Barrett. They have some guys, but they also signed a bunch of veterans to a bunch of 1-2 year deals. It's not really working out as the beginning of the season has shown. And I know the Knicks are looking for answers. I know the Knicks are looking for changes. And I think this may be the beginning of one of the changes right here because we don't know what else they're going to do for the rest of the year. We know they're going to keep an eye on potential head coaching options when the season ends. They may make some trades because there were some reports about Marcus Morris maybe potentially being traded. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade some other guys. Maybe they might try to trade Julius Randle. All those options are potentially there for them as the Knicks try to rebound. It's just really from what I've seen in the last few years of the Knicks with this David Blatt hiring is that there's just a disconnect with the front office and the personnel and the coaching. There's a disconnect with what they want to do, what the plan is, and where the direction of the team is going. I feel like this past offseason, they really wanted the first pick, obviously, because everybody wanted Zion Williamson, and they couldn't get him. So they picked his teammate, RJ Barrett, from Duke. And RJ hasn't played bad. RJ, I think, for what I've seen, is going to be a good player in this league. I think RJ has the potential to be one of the better players in the league, maybe a potential all-star. He's still only in his first year, so we can't sit here and think, he may not even be a superstar. But I feel like he's a good player. Mitchell Robinson's a good player. Alfonso Thier is a good player. They have some young guys. They have some talent that they can build around for the future if that's the direction that they felt like would be best for them to go into, which I think they should definitely look into. I think hiring the next head coach, what's important for them is to make sure that they hire a person who's a good leader, who's a good teacher, and can handle the New York scrutiny and stress, because it's not easy coaching in New York. It's not easy playing in New York. Yeah, that's for any sport, from Yankees to the Giants to the Knicks. It's not easy playing in New York. You will be scrutinized. That's just a part of the job. And so you need someone who can handle that pretty well. And And honestly, a lot of people like to say James Dolan isn't the best owner in the league. And James Dolan has made some mistakes, as every owner has made mistakes in the past. But James Dolan's mistakes, since the Knicks haven't been good in a few years, has definitely came to the forefront. It definitely shows. I think James Dolan has made some decisions that I kind of scratch my head wondering why. But again, he is the owner of the Knicks. He's going to be the owner of the Knicks unless he sells the team. And he's going to be one of the main guys who's active in the decision making of what happens in the team. And that's another reason why I was interested by them hiring David Blatt. How much say will he have? How much credibility is he going to have in those rooms when they have those discussions about the Knicks? They have those discussions about the team, and they have those discussions about where they want to go as a team. I think it's important to remember here that the Knicks are a franchise that they're one of the biggest brands in the NBA. And with being one of the biggest brands in the NBA, I feel like there's this pressure that basically if they struggle, that they're very underwhelming because they're the Knicks. The Knicks are one of those teams that people always hope are good, because I do personally feel like the Knicks, if they're good, the league is better. It's one of their big market teams, and it definitely helps with a lot of things like ratings and money and revenue for the league. So finding the blueprint and finding what needs to happen to get the Knicks back on track is definitely one of the most important things for all Knicks fans. As you know, Knicks fans have been just wanting just a resemblance of a good team ever since Carmelo left. And I feel like the Knicks fans are kind of at a point also where they feel like even if we don't instantly become a title contender, I think Knicks fans are at the point where they just want to be relevant. They want a team that is respectable, that goes out and plays hard every night. They could get great games and make it worth going back to Madison Square Garden to watch them play. And I feel like right now that's where the Knicks don't have that appeal. You know, Spike Lee has been a big outspoken guy. He's said this multiple times. He still goes to Knicks games, even though they're not the best right now. And it's really, the Knicks have a very loyal fan base. And they've tried to be patient with this front office and with this team. And it's just frustrating for them. It's frustrating to deal with all the years of losing. It's frustrating to deal with all the years of just some hope and then failure. Because you really want the Knicks to be good again. A lot of people are Knicks fans based off of how the Knicks were in the 90s and 80s. You know, a lot of fans are just trying to relive those days of just being a relevant team. And I think, like I said, with David Blatt being hired, it will be very interesting to see how much say he has and what changes are made to the team. How is the structure of the team changed? What is their plan moving forward? What is the off-season plan after this season is over? Because remember, we're still very early in the season. We're still very early in the entire process. The Knicks just fired David Fizdale last week. It's not like this has been going on for a while, and they probably will not hire a new replacement head coach, as far as I know, until after the season is over. Now, maybe when it gets closer to the end of the season, maybe because it's happened before, but I feel like they're going to wait till the end of the season before they mention who they're going to hire. But you're going to hear names and links throughout the year. It's just a part of the NBA season. It's a part of the business. And I think that the Knicks, they have some pieces. They need to figure out what they're going to do with all the 1-2 year contracts. They may just let a lot of them go into free agency. And then they need to figure out, well, more than likely will probably be a lottery team. Obviously, whatever pick they get is going to be big, because that's another chance for another young piece to come to the team and build with the roster they have. And then it's going to be interesting to see what they do in free agency. Because next year's free agency class is not as star-studded as this past year's. And the only person that we feel like is very big in the free agency class that is worth, we think, a big sell your entire team for is Giannis. But you have heard no Knicks and Giannis talk for a reason. Because I feel like right now the Knicks are in a position where, since you're not good, and in the league you're not known as a great structured team from the front office down, players are not going to come to the Knicks because, oh, it's the Knicks. They want to come to a team that's respectable and has a good structure. And that's why teams and players go to Brooklyn, because right now they have the structure. And right now they're a respectable team. They were a playoff team last year. So now if you're a star player, you may look at Brooklyn and be like, oh, I want to come here. That's why KD and Kyrie came. And I think the Knicks, if they want to get back on track, they should try to follow that plan. Try to get your office straight. Try to get some pieces. Try to set everything back up so everybody's on the same page and everybody's clicking. Because that's what you need at the end of the day if you're going to eventually get back to where you think where the league thinks the Knicks should be, and where the Knicks think they should be, and where the fans want them to be, which is at the pinnacle of the NBA. And then, like I said, they have young pieces like RJ Barrett. And speaking of RJ Barrett, next segment we're going to talk about Rookie of the Year, who's leading in the race, what the odds are looking like, because odds came out today on who's predicted to be Rookie of the Year. Up next.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment, we talked about the Knicks and the hiring of David Blatt to be a consultant to the Knicks brass. And I talked about how the Knicks have some young talent. They have a future. They have some things to work with. They just got to get things right back on track, because the Knicks fans have been starving for just relevancy again for years. And now we're going to go into my next topic about potential Rookie of the Years and who's leading in the odds and everything like that. And started off right now with the current odds released from Caesar's Palace. John Morant is the number one rated rookie. He has the most bets to win Rookie of the Year this year, and he definitely deserves it. John Morant is one of the most best young players coming out of this draft. Explosive player, a dynamic player, a player that you want to come and see and watch. And Memphis got a good player in him. A lot of people wondered about them moving off of Mike Conley for him. I was one of the few people who agreed with the decision. I think that John Morant is someone that Memphis can embrace and bring back to them what they've wanted, which is just another star, another must-see player. You know, you went from the grit and grind, and now you might be going to a highlight show with John Morant. He's a young player. He kind of reminds you a little bit of Russell Westbrook, the way he plays. He's very explosive. He's very sporadic. He's improving. I think that's the biggest thing, that he's improving throughout the year. And he's someone that I feel like definitely deserves it. He deserves this honor, especially with Zion not playing, which I'll get to in a minute. And he's one of those guys that, you know, if John Morant comes on, even though Memphis isn't a good team, you watch the game to see John Morant. You watch the game to see what he does next. You see if he's going to have a highlight dunk or he's going to make a highlight play. He has made games very interesting based off his play. And like I said, he is one of the best young guys in the league, one of the best rookies in the league. And do not be surprised if he actually does end up winning Rookie of the Year this year. Now we're going to go on to Zion. He's still third on this list, even though he hasn't played yet. He was supposed to play by the end of this year. Now they're pushing it back to 2020. That is somewhat disappointing for Pelican fans. They've been waiting to see Zion since the day they drafted him. I think that Zion is a guy who, when he comes back, I still think he can show that he has the star potential. He showed it in preseason and summer league. He showed it. It's just about him being able to get healthy and get on the court and show it and prove it to everybody. It was interesting because Paul Pierce from ESPN talked about the other day how he thinks Zion might or should sit out the rest of the year because the Pelicans aren't doing that well right now. The Pelicans are not in any type of contention right now and probably won't be by the time he gets back. So he feels like he should sit out. And I think Zion, it does make sense to a certain degree, but I feel like this at the same time if Zion Williamson is healthy, then you don't want to rob him of playing the game he loves. And basketball is the game he loves. And I feel like he should play, but I can understand he could do a Ben Simmons and just not play the whole year to keep that rookie eligibility. So that's something that could definitely be a case or something that. And basically, really just Zion, I feel like when he comes back and whenever he does play, I feel like he will prove to the league and to the teams and to everybody why he was drafted number 1 overall. Why the hype on him was so high. Because a lot of people expect big things from Zion Williamson. And he has all the potential in the world to be that thing that they expected him to be. He has the potential to be that thing that some people believe could replace LeBron James. Because he has all the talent in the world to be that guy. And so that's why you watch out for him whenever he can get healthy and get on that court. He'll show. It'll make you sometimes wonder if he had started the season healthy, could he have maybe competed with John Morant for Rookie of the Year? In my opinion. And the next rookie I want to recognize that's in the Rookie of the Year odds is Eric Pascal, Golden State Warriors. He has been the bright spot on Golden State this year with all the injuries to Steph Curry, Clay, KD leaving, Draymond getting hurt, D'Angelo Russell getting hurt. He's played very, very well for them. He is second on this list, and for good reason. He's played extremely well. He's a guy that you can look at for Golden State, got him for cheap, and say, well, when we get Clay and Steph back, we got Eric Pascal. And then we got, depending if they bring Draymond Green back, Draymond Green, and then we got some guys. And we're going to get a top pick next year because we'll probably be a lottery team. The Warriors are a very, very well-structured franchise, so they have all the ability in the world to get right back into it next year with some guys. And Eric Pascal has played very well. He showed the ability to score. He showed the ability to defend. He wasn't a guy who was highly rated coming out, but he's played well for them. And when you're a good team like the Warriors, you're getting a lot of late draft picks, and it's going to be important for you to hit, but that's what they've done. Draymond Green was a second-round pick, and you've seen what he's carrying into. I mean, Steph was an early pick. Clay was a first, too, but outside of Steph, he was the only one who had the star hype. And everybody else they drafted was a lower-round pick, and they played and they competed at a high level. And Eric Pascal definitely deserves all the credit that he's going to be getting and he has gotten for his play this season, because he has definitely been the lone bright spot on the Golden State Warriors this year, and he deserves all the recognition that he's going to get, because he's going to be at the forefront of this team, and he will be on this team for years to come as a very, very good player. And he's going to continue to compete at a high level and continue to give the Golden State Warriors some talent that maybe some people overlooked. So the next guy I'm going to talk about, there's two guys on the same team playing for Miami Heat, and Nunn and Tyler Hero. They are on this list. I feel like since they play on the same team, it kind of cancels each other out a little, because they're going to be playing on the same team, so they're going to be sharing the ball. And maybe one night Nunn's going to have a big night, the next night Hero's going to have a big night, so you can't really solidify who's going to have the big night. But they're both very great players. Hero coming out of Kentucky, he was on the bench. Kentucky plays a lot of great players, a lot of great good players. And so sometimes you can get caught lost in the shuffle and not play as a starter. And some people wondered if Tyler Hero should come back for another year, but he was still a lottery pick coming off the bench because he showed flashes at Kentucky. And he showed flashes here in the league. He showed the ability to score. He showed the ability to shoot. He's a very good player. He has the ability to defend. He's a long player. Nunn has also showed the ability to score. A shooter, a guy who's been through some stuff in his life and has now bounced back to be one of the better players. He's always had the talent. He's showing it here in Miami. Pat Riley's great at finding these gems, these people that no one sees or no one hears about or no one thinks is going to be what they become, and then they end up being great players in Miami because they're given the chance to succeed. And I think that's what's going to really help them at the end of the year because of this young talent they have. But I feel like those two guys are definitely deserving of all the credit that they've gotten because they've played very, very well they've played at a high level, and they've played what you would expect them to play for Miami if they've needed everything that they've gotten this year. And both of those players, they probably won't win Rookie of the Year, but those are guys that you're going to be talking about, I believe, years down the line as cornerstones of the Miami Heat franchise. And then the last guy I'm going to get into here is R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett on the Knicks. The Knicks have had a very dysfunctional year already, but he's been one of the bright spots. I feel like on the team, he's played very well for them. A lot of people were kind of on the fence with him because, they knew he was good, but could he be the pick that they need him to be maybe that star? I think he showed flashes that he can be a scorer in this league. He can play very well. He can play at a good high level. He can play at a level where he can become eventually an all-star. He's had some big games. Barrett, I feel like, has not gotten the respect he deserves at times this year, and I feel like that it's unfair to him. But, you're on a team sometimes that's dysfunctional like the Knicks that can sometimes hinder you, but we can still see, if you really have a good eye, can see who's good on that team. And he's one of the young players that they can build around with Mitchell Robinson and Alfonso here and the rest of those guys. And I think that those guys can all play well together. And I think that we should really sit here and look at these guys and think to ourselves, the Knicks have all the ability in the world to be a good team if they can get this figured out in the front office. And that's it for this segment. But coming up next, we're going to talk about some news around the association. Stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Brice Lewis. And now we're going to get into some news around the league. We're going to have to start off with some sad news here. David Stern, the last commissioner before Alan Silver, is still hospitalized. He was hospitalized last week. They had to give him brain surgery. And right now he's still in the hospital. So we're wishing him a speedy recovery. We hope he can get back to full health and continue his life. Yeah, I feel like he has many years to live, and he is a big part of the NBA in league history. He was a part of the NBA when the league, we could say, maybe made that next jump in popularity. He was the commissioner during that time period, and he helped create the league and shape the league to what it is today. And we just, like I said, we wish him a speedy recovery. We hope he gets back soon. But in other news, the Heat hand the 76ers their first home loss of the season and what some people may call a Jimmy Butler revenge game. The 76ers lost their first game of the season and at home, and Jimmy Butler was the cause of that. What a fitting return, I would say. The Heat won 108-104. It was a great game. A lot of great stuff happened in this game. I watched this game from start to end. Jimmy Butler was booed. He was booed in the free throw line a few times. A lot of people question him about this game, about this decision to go to the Heat, but to give some standout performers, Kendrick Nunn had a standout performance tonight with 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. He was very instrumental in why they won. Jimmy Butler himself had 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Not the greatest statistical game, but still a good game nonetheless. Jimmy Butler is one of the better players in the league, and I sometimes feel like he gets undervalued for what he does for the team, and he's just really important. Everything they do with him, he's going to be interested to see what they do. Ball had 23 and 9 tonight, so he had a big game. And the Heat basically were able to pick up the win in the fourth quarter. They really would play well, play some good team basketball. They had some great defensive stops down the stretch, and that's cruised them to the win. On the 76ers side of things, Ben Simmons 17, 6, and 6. Tobias Harris had 20. Richardson had 17, and Embiid had 22 and 19. Almost 20-20 game, but just not enough. Not enough to beat the Heat tonight. A lot of people question Jimmy Butler, like I said, about why he decided to go to the Miami Heat. Why would he leave a team in the 76ers where you could say he was probably going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals as long as nothing happened again? And he would have had a chance to maybe beat the Raptors in a revenge from last year, or beat the Milwaukee Bucks, who a lot of people are still predicting the 76ers to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. Why would he leave a team with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and probably what some people consider the best path for him to get to the finals? One thing we got to think about is Jimmy Butler is a guy who's never really cared what people thought. He always did what he wanted to do. He always did what he felt like was best for him, and he's not afraid to speak his mind. Jimmy Butler has moved around a bit since leaving Chicago, going to Minnesota, had some issues with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Then went to Philadelphia. As far as we know, he really didn't have that many issues with the players. He seems to get along great with Embiid and everything like that. Now he's on the Miami Heat. And honestly, Jimmy Butler, I feel like, just made a decision that made him happy. He made a decision that he felt like was best for him. He made a decision that he felt like was going to put him in his career in the right direction. And honestly, if they get a lot of success this year in coming years with Jimmy Butler, I think we're going to look back on this Jimmy Butler decision and think he made the right decision. The Heat are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference this year, surprisingly. Not a lot of people expected them to be this good. Now, people were saying maybe a 4th or 5th seed, but the way they've started the season, if they can continue this all the way through, they could really be a top 2 seed, top 3 seed. And that's what a lot of people didn't expect. And then now some people are maybe thinking with what they've seen, with the talent they have, with the guys they have, with Nunn, Hero, and Bio, and Miles Leonard, and Dragic coming off the bench, that maybe the Heat can make a run in the playoffs. Maybe the Heat can make a Eastern Conference Finals themselves. It's one of those things where they've added a storyline to the league that I think the league likes, because it adds intrigue to the Eastern Conference playoffs. It adds some intrigue to just the entire league in general. I think, coming into the season, obviously, again, we really only thought it was Milwaukee and the 76ers. And so people thought maybe the Eastern Conference would be a little boring because of that. Where now that you've thrown the Heat in the mix, that adds another team. It adds a team that has some star power, some value to it. And now it makes it a 3-man race. And, not to disrespect Indiana Pacers. Indiana Pacers have also had a great start to the season. And this is without Victor Oladipo. So we'll have to see how they look when Victor Oladipo gets back on the Pacers. But back to the Heat. The Heat just, they really, I think, are a team to be reckoned with. I think Jimmy Butler made, like I said, the best decision for him. He made the best decision for his career. And he made the best decision moving forward in his career, because I think Jimmy Butler wants to show everybody that he can be the guy, that he is a guy that you should not sleep on. He is a guy that can compete and play with the best teams. In the game against the Lakers, they didn't get that outplayed. Now, in the second half, the Lakers played a better half, which got them the win, but they played a tough game against the Lakers. Like the Heat are a team that, like I said, are a wild card, and I think Jimmy Butler will take this team as far as he possibly can, and we will see if maybe this year we can get an idea of the ceiling of the Heat. But then it's like, can you really? Because a lot of their best players are still in their second year in the league, and they're getting better. So we'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye out on the Heat this year. And congrats to Jimmy Butler. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and I hope things continue to go well with him in Miami. In other news, the Hawks' Lloyd Pierce, there was a report saying that he's not on the hot seat yet, but if the team's performance does not improve and attitudes change, that he could be. Lloyd Pierce was taking over a rebuilding job in Atlanta, where the Hawks are currently rebuilding with young talent for the draft. And right now they have Trae Young, who right now is looking like a star. They've drafted some guys, John Collins, Kevin Huerter, 2 rookies this year, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter. And right now they're not off to a good start, and they're coming off a loss to the Knicks by 20. And it wasn't a good loss. And there was a report earlier this year where Trae Young was frustrated in the locker room, emotional in the locker room, and the Hawks were having to tell him that they were going to get him some help soon. And you hate to see it for Lloyd Pierce, because we don't know what the Hawks would be right now if John Collins never had that 25-game suspension. and Kevin Huerter didn't get hurt in the preseason and then get hurt again in the regular season, because we can consider those the second and third best players on the Hawks with Jabari Parker. And it's one of those things where you hope that when everybody gets healthy, you'll get to see how good this team really is. He's known as a guy who is a great developer of talent. He's a great coach, a good players coach. And I thought that he was a good fit for them, and I think he still is. I just think they have to right the ship. They have to stay on top of the mission and just keep hoping for the best. John Collins will be back against the Cleveland Cavaliers from his 25-game suspension. And for the most part, the team will be relatively fully healthy for the first time all year. And when the team is healthy, they have an over 500 record. It's not a big sample size, but they're over 500. So I think that's going to be interesting to what happens now in Atlanta, because you definitely don't want Trae Young being unhappy, because you want him to sign that second contract before he goes into that third contract, which is your prime contract. So definitely got to keep an eye on that situation. And lastly, we're going to talk about KG. KG came out this week saying that he and the Boston Celtics were the reason that LeBron James left Cleveland the first time. They basically broke LeBron. And the only thing I have to say about that is I think that's a little, I guess, cocky maybe on his part. I don't think he broke LeBron. I mean, I feel like LeBron looked at the situation and said, my best player right now on that Cleveland team was Mo Williams. They have Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and KG. I'm not beating them with Mo Williams, which is why he went to Miami. And when he went to Miami, he finally got over the hump. And I mean, that's more of just I assessed the situation and I saw what I needed to do to get better. And I feel like that, with that being said, well, he made the best decision for him. But I wouldn't sit here and say he broke LeBron. I feel like that statement is kind of a little giving themselves too much credit. Because, I mean, some people may make the argument that he did that with Minnesota, that he couldn't get over the hump in Minnesota, and that's why he went to Boston. That's why he waived his no-trade clause and got traded to Boston, because he couldn't do anything in Minnesota from a winning perspective and said, well, I need to get to a team that can win. So, you got to be careful when you say things like that, because you're kind of making it seem like you are the reason why things happened the way they were, when I do agree that they played a part. But I would not say that they broke LeBron James. And coming up next here, we're going to talk about breakout players of the season so far. There's a few guys that I really think have just had fantastic seasons and have really improved this year too. Coming right up.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment, we were talking about some things happening around the association, and now we're going to get to some player talk here. We're going to talk about who I think is the most improved player this year, breakout player, as you can say, too, also. And there's 4 guys that I feel like really stood out this year. Some guys that I think either have came back from maybe not being what people expected at first or early, or players who really were under the radar and really didn't really get a chance to play till now, or even players who were good but just became so much better this year. And then the first guy I want to talk about is someone from the Charlotte Hornets, Devontae Graham. Now, a lot of people, except if you watched him at Kansas, I watched Kansas, so I knew who he was, but a lot of y'all may not know who he is. He was drafted in 2018 by the Charlotte Hornets, second round pick, 34th. He really didn't play that much his first year. He only got very few sparing minutes. This year, he really became a big part. He came off the bench, basically. He was the 6th man. Now he's became more of a more legitimate player for them. And he's really took off. This year, he's averaging 19 points and 7 assists. He also had a big 40-point game against the Brooklyn Nets the other night. Devontae Graham has shown the ability to take over games, score at a high clip, and on a consistent basis, and really give the Charlotte Hornets, as you say, that's not said a lot since basically Kemba Walker last year, a star. He's outshined Terry Rozier. He's really been a nice surprise for Charlotte. He definitely has improved his game. Like I said, didn't get that much play time last year. Didn't do too much from a stat perspective. And this year, he's really taken off. He's really played well. And even though the Charlotte Hornets are not looked at as a team that are going to make the playoffs, they are going to be hanging around that. I think they're going to hang around because of Devontae Graham. He has played exceptionally well. He's one of those diamonds in the rough. He's one of those gems, those second-round gems that you didn't see coming. And then he came, and now you're just like, wow, this guy's a great player. And I guess we could say Michael Jordan made a good pick because, Michael Jordan's been on fire for some of the picks he's made. He's gotten a lot of lottery picks and has whiffed a lot of lottery picks. And this guy was just a second-round pick, and right now he's seeming like, since Kemba Walker, the best pick he's made. So I feel like that this definitely is great for him. I think he definitely is going to be in the running. If he continues this season for the Charlotte Hornets, do not be surprised if Devontae Graham wins Most Improved Player of the Year because he has definitely done his thing and he's played exceptionally well for the Charlotte Hornets. Next guy I want to recognize is a guy we already know. He's already a champion. He was a starter last year for the Toronto Raptors. Siakam. Pascal Siakam. This year he's averaging 25 points and 8 rebounds and 3 assists. Siakam had a good year last year. We knew who he was. We knew the potential he had. We've seen it. He won Most Improved last year because the year before that he didn't really do as much. Next year he did much more, which is one of the reasons why Toronto won the championship. And now this year he's taken his level to the next level. Like he's hitting the realm of potentially getting into superstardom. He is one of the reasons why Toronto has had such a great start after the championship, after Kawhi Leonard leaving. I think that Siakam is a guy who he has it all. Athletic, can play defense, can get to the rim. He's improved his jump shot. He's improved his three-point shot. He's improved a lot of things. Siakam just makes strides every year. You can tell he goes into every offseason, even after becoming a champion. He knew that basically he would be considered the best player on the team. He is the best player on Toronto after Kawhi. And he now stepped up, worked out, trained, and now he's back in the running for another Most Improved Player. That just shows you the amount of hard work he puts in. Siakam is one of the guys that I would be shocked if he doesn't make an all-star team this year. He should definitely make an all-star team this year because he's just played so well not to. He definitely is the guy who, if Toronto makes a deep run, it's going to be because of Siakam and Fred VanVleet and a lot of the supporting cast. Because remember, Toronto is a very well-structured team, a very well-coached team. And Nick Nurse has done a great job with those boys. And you can see it with everybody's improvements. You can see it with the way they play. And Siakam's no exception. He is right in the running for another Most Improved Player. Siakam will be a household name for years coming up. Just wait for it. He will. Trust me. And the next player that I want to talk about is Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo is a guy who he came out of Kentucky. Great player at Kentucky. He was a first-round pick a couple years ago, 2017 draft, 14th pick. First year, you saw the potential. He had some injuries, but you saw the potential. Last year, same way, he played a little bit more. You saw the potential. You saw the growth. But this year, he's really taken off. This year, he's really playing well. He's averaging 15 and 10 right now with almost 5 assists. You really can see the progression in Bam. He has really made his game into an all-around game. He is one of the best shot blockers, too, in the league, and he has great athleticism. He's one of those guys who, I wouldn't say he's a Blake Griffin, but he has somewhat of a Blake Griffin skill set without the jump shot. We're talking early Blake Griffin. We're not talking right now Blake Griffin. We're talking about early Blake Griffin. And not the same Duncan, but he's a physical force. No, actually, a better comparison? would be a more athletic Dwight Howard. I think you could say that that's what Bam is. He's not as polished in the post as Dwight, but he can get buckets, he can rebound, and he can block shots, and he's a defender. That matchup against Anthony Davis last week was a great matchup to watch because Bam is one of the better big men in the league, and he's doing this on a consistent basis this year. That's why he's in the running for most improved player. He is in the running because of his consistency. You know, he plays extremely well. Like, he got 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists against Philly. His matchup was Joel Embiid. That was a tough matchup, and he still played well. He did what he had to do. And this is only going to improve, and this is only going to get better for him. He has all the potential in the world to be a star big man in this league. And that's one of the reasons why I also say Miami is a dark horse in the Eastern Conference. And the last guy I want to talk about is a guy who's been under scrutiny since 2016. He was drafted second overall by the LA Lakers, was traded to the Pelicans this past year. And if you know what I'm talking about Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram was a guy who a lot of people felt like was a bust after he got traded. They felt like he didn't live up to expectations. He had some injury problems. Things just weren't working in LA. This year, he's really found a home with the Pelicans. He's averaging 25 points a game. Now, we knew Ingram could score a little bit, but 25 points a game, that's great. 7 rebounds and almost 4 assists. For his career, he's averaging 15, so he's almost averaging 10 points more than his career average. That shows you the jump he's made in his year. In what we say is year 4 for him right now. Brandon Ingram is one of those guys who just wasn't fitting in LA. I feel like he didn't fit in LA. He had the injury scare with the blood clots last year. And this year, he's really came out. He's played extremely well. He's played great. He's played fantastic. And I think that even though the Pelicans have not had a great year, that's why in trade talks now for the Pelicans, everybody's touchable except Zion and Brandon Ingram. Because they're like, if he's doing this and Zion gets back, we could have one of the best 2 duos in the NBA next year, or whenever Zion gets back this year. They can show it this year. Brandon Ingram has made, like I said, tremendous strides. He's improved in all elements of his game. A lot of people coming out compared him to Kevin Durant because he was long like Kevin. He has a 7'3" wingspan. He can shoot. He has some athleticism. But he's a stick like KD too. That's why they said that. And I feel like that he has all the ingredients to, if he can keep this up, to be a 20-plus a game scorer, which would be great for any team, and eventually get himself into all-star contention, become an all-star player, and make everybody think that, hey, he's almost like D'Angelo Russell in that way, where him being an all-star player is not a success for him because we know what he can do. He can score. He can make plays. He's a playmaker. And I feel like Brandon Ingram is learning to become a playmaker. He's learning to become a star. He's learning to become one of the best players in the league. And I think the Pelicans, like I said, got a steal in that trade. That would be the steal you would say out of that entire trade with the Lakers. But coming up next, we're going to switch to college basketball and talk about some big college basketball games this weekend and who's on upset alert next.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment, we talked about some of the most improved players in the NBA this season, and how 4 players in mind stuck out, and I feel like those are the 4 players that will be in the running for most improved player of the year this year. Now we're going to switch over to college basketball and talk some college basketball talk. We're going to talk about some big games coming up, and there isn't as many as you can say big matchups, but some matchups that could create some upsets, maybe upset alert basically. But there are 2 games that stand out that are big on this week's schedule, on this weekend's slate, and I'm gonna let y'all know what those are, and y'all need to tune in for them. So, starting off, the first game I want y'all to pay attention to is this: Kansas and Villanova. That's the first big game, 12 o'clock on Fox, Saturday. Big game. Kansas, the new number 1 team. They have a great team this year. They're getting right back to where they used to be after last year was considered somewhat of a down year, even though they still made the tournament. And they're playing a great Villanova team. Villanova is always known as a great basketball power, and it's going to be a great matchup. I think both of those teams do a lot of things well. I think both of those teams have done things they've played the way they wanted to play. And I also feel like that Villanova is also undefeated at home. So that's going to be a great matchup to see if Kansas can upset Villanova at home. And I shouldn't say upset, but just be able to get Villanova their first loss. If you're wondering about who's the leading scorer for both teams, Daniel Mormack for Kansas is the top scorer for Kansas, and Samuels for Nova is the top scorer for them. They're going to be going at it this week. They're going to be really just competing to see if they can get their team over the hump in this game and really trying to basically help improve their tournament resume and help improve their net ranking. So that way when the new net rankings are released, Villanova can get higher or Kansas can get higher because they feel like we're number 1 in AP. We need to be number 1 in net too. The other big game that's happening this week, Ohio State versus Kentucky on CBS at 5:15. This is, as far as I can remember, this is always a great game. I've seen them play in previous years. These are usually always great games. Ohio State suffered their first loss to Minnesota this past week, so they're coming off an upset, looking to get back on track against Kentucky. Both teams 5 and 6 in the AP poll, looking to get this key win to help the resume, to help just potentially get a number 1 seed. Because the thing about both of these games is both of these teams are in contention to maybe potentially get number 1 seeds. And so these games are very, very big and very, very important for them. They want these games because, college basketball is so great because the top teams are going to play each other, either in a tournament or they'll be scheduled. It's not like college football where you feel like sometimes like teams like Alabama, they try to play cupcakes. Where college basketball, there's so many games that you have to play. There's a very strong chance you're going to play some really good teams. Plus, it has been that case for years in college basketball. You need a strong resume to get into the tournament. Now, we may sit here and think teams like Ohio State, Kentucky are going to get in anyway because they're who they are and they're already ranked highly. But these games are usually really good. This game is going to be at Kentucky, so this is going to be very, very interesting. I think this game is going to present challenges to both teams. The key to this game for me is that both of these teams are great rebounding teams, so whoever wins on the boards is going to be who wins this game to me. I feel like both teams can score. Both teams can also play defense. They both have young, exciting talent, and it's going to be more about who can make the plays at the end of the day to create a victory for either team. Because both of these teams want this win badly. Both of these teams want to show that they're a team to be reckoned with and why they're the most dangerous team in college basketball this year. So now we're going to get into some games that I feel like could have potential upset. One game to keep an eye on this weekend is Dayton, number 13 Dayton versus Colorado. Now, Dayton is 9-1. Colorado is 8-2. Colorado was ranked last week before they lost a couple of games. And I feel like this game could be potentially an upset. I think Dayton, again, I've said Dayton is one of the teams I look out for this year, just in college basketball in general, and in the tournament. And they're playing a good Colorado team. Colorado is not a team to be slept on. This will be a neutral site game. This will be in Chicago. at the United Center. And in this game will be a game that this is big for Colorado to get back into the rankings and also keep their resume strong for the NCAA tournament. And just big for Dayton just to continue to let people know that they're a serious team. They're a team to beat. They're a team that you have to watch out for, and you cannot take them lightly. But I think Colorado could potentially upset them this week. And if they do, that's going to be big for Colorado. And so Dayton has to come out, play some defense, get some shoot good shots, and make plays. And the best players on both teams have to play their best game because this game is going to be, I think, a dogfight all the way to the end. I think both teams, this is going to be a close game to the last minutes of the second half. And this game is going to really maybe potentially be one of the underrated games of the week in terms of game quality. So do not miss out on that game. You can catch this game on CBS Sports at 6:30. I definitely would advise you to tune in. Another game that could potentially have an upset is San Diego State, which is ranked 20, is going against Utah. San Diego State currently is undefeated at 10-0, and Utah is 8-1. Now, this game will also be at 6:30 on the Pac-12 Network. This will be in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. Now, this game is also big because San Diego State is a surprise team this year. This is a team that not a lot of people expect this type of start from. They've cracked AP poll this week, and they're trying to continue their success against a good Utah team who is 8-1. If Utah wins this game, who says they won't crack the poll next week? So this is definitely a big game for both teams. Again, these early games before conference really starts hitting. These are big for resumes. Big because the committee that looks at this is going to go back to this game and say, who won this game? Why did they win this game? And this game could be what determines if they get into the NCAA tournament or not. Both of these teams can still get in regardless of this game. But it's important to have games like this to make the decision easier for the people who are deciding if they're going to put you in or not. And San Diego State, since they're a team that's on the rise, really wants this game because they want to show that they are for real and they're a team to be reckoned with and they're a team that can make some noise when tournament time comes around. So Utah better be on their game, but I think Utah could potentially upset them this week. So that's a game that you definitely need to look out for. That is a game with potential upset written all over it. So if Utah can get this win, you might see them creep up some boards, maybe a team that now you have to watch out for. And in San Diego State, even if they lost this game, they're still going to be a team where they bounce back and they win, get another winning streak. They're going to be just as dangerous, and they're going to be just as paid attention to in the entire league if they continue to have the success they've had to start the season. And then the last game that I feel like could potentially have an upset is Arizona and St. John's. Arizona is 16th. St. John's is unranked, but this game is going to be in San Francisco at the Chase Center. St. John's has always been a team to me. They're one of those mid-conference, mid-major teams that usually always have a good basketball team every year. They're a team that's always to be reckoned with every year. You don't ever sleep on them. You don't ever think that they're just not going to come out and play. They're 9-2 this year. They played well. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now. Arizona right now lost their last game and they dropped to 10-2, but they're still one of the better teams in the Pac-12. And I think this game is going to really say a lot about them bouncing back from an L. They bounced back from their last one and they won. So let's see if they can do the exact same thing here. They're going to need to because, St. John's is not going to come in and lay down for these guys. St. John's is going to come in here, play a great game, and then try to get the upset. And I think that they potentially could get the upset. Like I said, this week is not in terms of big quality games on the weekend there, except a couple. But there's a lot of games here that are good under the radar games like this one that could potentially have an upset. And I think St. John's has the talent and the ability to go and beat the Arizona Wildcats at the Chase Center and get a win and help improve their resume, help improve their status. So again, this is a game that the committee will look back and say, well, they won this game. They beat a good team if Arizona finishes the season good, and will help them have an easier path to get into the college basketball tournament, the NCAA tournament, and be able to give them a chance at the dance and to potentially, maybe make a deep run, maybe be a Cinderella this year. You never know with St. John's. St. John's, like I said, usually always a good team. So, those are the games that I feel like they're the biggest games, and also some games that I think that could be on upset alert this week. And coming up next, I'm going to give some predictions for some games this weekend coming up in the NBA and who I think is going to win right here
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment, we talked about college basketball big games, the upsets that potentially could happen in college basketball this weekend. Definitely go back and listen to that, because that was a good segment right there. But now we're going to get into my predictions and big games that are coming up this week in NBA basketball. Starting with the Thursday night games. TNT, always great games. The Lakers and the Bucks. That's a big game. Very anticipated matchup. To both teams are number one in their respective conferences. LeBron James, the Greek Freak, AD, Chris Middleton. It's going to be a big game. Big game. This is going to really see where both teams are against top prime competition. Obviously, the Lakers have played some great competition. The Bucks have too. Bucks, like I said, identical record with the Lakers at 24-4. It's going to be a game that a lot of people, I think, are going to tune into. It's not going to be as popular as obviously when the Lakers play the Clippers, but definitely going to be probably one of the best inter-conference games all year you'll see. I'm actually going to take the Milwaukee Bucks in this game. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are going to win this game. I think they're going to play very well defensively and slow down the rest of the Lakers. And the big thing that's going to really be interesting in this game, the key matchup, is going to be Giannis versus LeBron. Because they both can kind of play that point forward position. So it'll be interesting to see if they're ever matched up on each other, and just to see the matchup in general, because you think about it, you're not going to put Eric Bledsoe on LeBron. So they might just get matched up from the get-go, but they might put Chris Middleton on him. We'll have to see how the game actually goes in that respect. And then the big game coming on after that is Rockets and Clippers. That's another big game. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. All those games are big. These players, they're all coming in here. They're going to come in. Big Western Conference matchup. Big for seeding too. Just, the Rockets are like only 2.5 games behind the Clippers right now. And they're trying to improve the record. And they're also trying to show that they can play with the LA teams. They can beat the LA teams. They're trying to show that they're a team that it's not just a two-man race in the Western Conference. We are for real, and we can play with these guys. And we deserve the respect that they get because we're just as good. We were the ones who took the defending champs before last year, Golden State, to 7 games with KD. So they definitely feel like they can play this game. They definitely feel like this is a game for them to make a statement. And just another big game. I'm going to go with the Clippers here. I think the Clippers are going to win. I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are just going to be too much for the Houston Rockets. I think the Clippers are a better overall team than Houston. I'm not saying that Houston can't be better later down the stretch, but I just think this early in the season, the Clippers are going to pick up this early W. As long as Kawhi doesn't have any surprise low management, I think the Clippers should pick this win up, and they should be able to pretty much continue their winning ways. So another game that I think is important to look at is this game isn't from a perspective of records the best game, but Timberwolves and Trailblazers. I think this is important because all these teams are fighting for that 8th spot in the West, and this is a big game for that. Timberwolves have played well at the beginning of the season. They've kind of fell off a little bit, even though Cat has played well continuously throughout. The Blazers have found themselves a big three, so to say, of Carmelo, C.J. McCollum, and Damian Lillard. I mean, they're a very good scoring team. And like I said, the Trailblazers are still trying to get things adjusted. They're trying to build chemistry with other teammates. They're trying to build just everything they need to do so they can make that run late. This game's on a Saturday. I think this game is going to be a game that we'll have to see what happens, because whoever wins this game will get a leg up on the other one in the 8th seed spot in the Western Conference. Like I said, both teams are fighting for the 8th spot. Both teams want that 8th spot, and I think it'll be a great game to watch. I'm going to go with Portland in this game. I think Portland's going to pick up the W. If Carmelo continues to play the way he's played, I feel like the Blazers could go on a run here, get a winning streak going, and really be a team to be reckoned with down the stretch later in the season. Another big game, ESPN on Friday. Mavericks and 76ers. Now, this game obviously would be more bigger in terms of star power. Luka Doncic is playing, but he's out for that ankle injury for a couple of weeks, so he won't be playing this game. But the Mavericks did beat the Milwaukee Bucks, who was on their 18-win game streak without Luka. So the Mavericks are showing you they can play without Luka. It's not just Luka and nobody else. They still have Kristaps Porzingis, and they have a lot of other guys. 76ers also coming off a loss to the Heat, also going to look at this game and think, okay, well, we need this game to show and bounce back. And I think that the 76ers are going to definitely come back. I think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to bounce back. This is at Philly. I think they're going to avenge that first home loss they suffered to the Heat. And I think they're going to come back, and I think they're going to win this game. I think the key to this game will just be Philly's defense against that explosive Dallas offense. As you know, Dallas is one of the best offensive teams in the league, top 5 offensive efficiency, and the 76ers are known as one of the best defensive teams in the league. They're very long and lengthy on the defensive end. So it'll be interesting to see that matchup, to see what happens. Luka would have been great in this position because that matchup with Ben Simmons would have been great. You could say those are two just bigger-than-life point guards. Ben Simmons is like 6'10", Luka's 6'7", 6'8". That would have been a great matchup. It's like the pterodactyls at point guard matchup, So that definitely is something that we would look forward to, but it's still going to be a great game regardless. This is still a game that you want to tune into. This is still a game that you want to look into. You don't want to sleep on this game and think this game is not a game you should tune into, because I feel like this could be one of the better games of the weekend. Another game that's happening this weekend is on Sunday is Dallas again against the defending champion Toronto Raptors. I think this is another game again that if Luka was playing would have been even bigger in people's eyes, but still a big game. Mavericks still a good team. I think they're coming into this game and they're playing the defending champs. Defending champs are playing great right now. Van Vliet's playing great. Pascal Siakam is playing great. I think that this game is going to be determined by, again, on the defensive end of the ball. I think both teams can score with each other. I think both teams can score with the best of them in the league. And I think that Toronto is looking at this game and just trying to continue the stretch. The Mavericks, again, are just trying to stay afloat without Luka. And I think that this game could definitely come down to the fourth quarter, last minutes. I'll have Toronto going over in this game. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to be able to defend home court because this will be at Toronto, and I think they're going to beat the Dallas Mavericks in a great game. I think this game isn't nationally televised, but if you have League Pass or you live in these areas, you definitely should try to watch it. It's a 3:30 game, early game. So it's going to be a smack dab, maybe after church, maybe watch basketball after church. It's be a perfect game for you to watch. Definitely a matchup I'm going to try to look at in some capacity because I want to see these guys play. This is definitely one of the games of the season that you should definitely look forward to. And then lastly, the biggest game on Sunday, Lakers and Nuggets on NBA TV at 9:30. This game is going to be very interesting because Lakers have so far beaten the Nuggets this season, and right now the Lakers are on a tear. Now, if the Bucks do beat the Lakers, they'll come into this game with a loss. But if the Lakers win, they'll come into this with a win. And the Nuggets have kind of found their stride after the beginning of the season. There were some struggles. There was some difficulties, but I think they've worked everything out. They're playing great basketball right now. And they're another team that a lot of people feel like don't sleep on us. We can compete with the top guys. We're trying to show we can compete with the LA teams and potentially maybe make it to the Western Conference Finals and win a championship. So this game is going to be big. I'm going to go with the Lakers, though, in this game. I think Lakers are going to beat the Nuggets again. I just feel like, especially if AD is back and fully healthy, I think that matchup with Joker is honestly in favor of Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is the best big man in NBA right now. And I think this is another game for him to show and prove to everybody out there that even against the best big man like Joker, that he's the best big man. And I think LeBron and all them in the supporting cast is just going to be too much for the Nuggets to handle. I wouldn't be shocked either if the Nuggets won. But I'm going to take the Lakers in this game. I'm going with the Lakers to win this game. And honestly, win it kind of handily. I think the Lakers are going to come back and win this game pretty handily. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening to the GSMC podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.